Look.
It was the worst book I've ever read.
Did you know he's Swedish?
Oh my god.
I don't know if you know this, but he's Swedish.
Is he Swedish?
Yeah.
Is his name Lucas Bloomfield?
I don't know. I think it might be another Lucas.
My favourite's when she puts fucking in the middle and she's like, it's Lucas fucking Bloomfist. And I was like,
I counted. She does that 6 times.
Jesus Christ.
She's like, he's looking at me. Lucas fucking Bloomfist. This right here in my hand is a BDSM kink checklist. If that makes you uncomfortable, then this video is not for you, because we will be talking about Ali Hazelwood's latest book, Deep End. It was released last week and we finally got our copy. We did listen to it in audio book format first, and then we went through and just really highlighted all the parts that we didn't like and all the parts that didn't make sense, all the parts that were icky and gross, because I've made a video on Ali Hazelwood before. You guys know that I really like her works, but this was not it. The only 2 physical copies I have of Ali Hazelwood books are my 2 favourite of hers, Love Theoretically, and of course her debut novel, The Love Hypothesis. Now I have both of these books because I love them. I got this one in hardcover because Jack is my favourite man in the Ali Hazelwood universe. So when I read the synopsis for Deep End, I was like, okay, this sounds like something that I'm gonna really like. It's gonna be my favorite Ali Hazelwood book. When will I learn? When will I learn that I need to either listen to it for free on Spotify first or read it as an ebook first before I buy the physical print? Because I read the description, I pre-ordered this, and I was like, you know what, this might actually be my favorite Ali Hazelwood book. Talk about false advertising. This was advertised as a BDSM, like heavily spiced, forbidden romance. They're athletes, so it's a sports romance as well. Like, I was like, oh my god, I'm so excited for this book. Last year we got Bride, Not in Love, a novella on Spotify, and a Christmas book as well. So Ali's been working herself to the bone. I liked Bride. I think Bride is the last good thing of substance that she wrote. Because Not in Love, while I personally didn't like it, I went back after this and I was like, okay, is it that I didn't like it, or is it just a bad novel? And it was just bad. It's not, at first I was like, okay, it's good, but it's just not my personal preferences. But then I came to the conclusion that, hang on a second, maybe I'm not the problem. Maybe after reading this, I need to look back at Ali Hazelwood's works. And I did, and Bride is her last good novel. She hasn't written, so this is the 4th book in a row now, book/novella, that we are getting let down and disappointed. Because the characters are unlikable, the plot is like non-existent. This whole time they're working up to the Olympics and then we don't get to the Olympics. They get together and then we see the Olympics as a once-off line in the epilogue of like, oh yeah, by the way, we went to the Olympics, got silver. Okay, sorry, I thought we were just working up to that. No, this whole book is such a kerfuffle. I listen to Ali Hazelwood audiobooks with my partner. It's a thing that we do. They indulge me because I'm the romance reader in the relationship. And the whole time we were just like laughing through it. The only enjoyable part of this book was that my partner listened to it with me and made commentary throughout the whole thing to make it bearable. For example, in the first half of the book, and I counted as well, the first half of the book, everything this way onwards, first half of the book, she says his name, the full name. She just doesn't call him Lucas. She calls him Lucas Bloomfist, like she full names him 29 times. As if the reader, we don't know his name by now. So anytime they were just like, oh my god, Lucas is looking at me. Lucas Bloomfist is looking at me. And my partner was like, do you know his name's Lucas Bloomfist? At that point, we know, Ali, you don't have to keep saying it 100 million times. Like, we know what his name is. And we just kept on getting full names, which was just so... I don't even know why she did that. It didn't make sense. because it's not like he's full naming her. No one's like full naming her, and she doesn't full name anyone else, so it's not like a quirk she does. It's just him that she full names, and I'm like, what are you doing? So let's start at the start. This was advertised as a BDSM novel. After I read this, I went back so that I could find the description where it was advertised as a BDSM novel and clip it so I could show you guys false advertising, and it's all disappeared. All of the advertising of this being a kinky BDSM novel has disappeared. And it's because, and I think it's because, the Goodreads reviews, everyone's kind of been like, well, where is it? And I've printed out a couple so I can read them to you. Juliana says, if the tagline of your book is that both characters are super kinky, I don't know, maybe make them have super kinky sex. This was bland, vanilla, boring. Sex scenes with him telling her what to do. Wow, so kinky. I was bored the entire book and I didn't like either character at all. It was the most insta-love book and I thought he was a major creep. Ali needs to be locked up or go on hiatus. Yana says, 1 star, I think the kink got lost in the printing of this book. I would rather jump off a cliff into a deep end water than read this again. Pat says, excuse me, but what does Ali think BDSM stands for? Bible Discussion Study Meeting? Because our definitions surely don't match at all. And then finally, Larissa was like, 2 stars, I'm still searching for the kink. Because when I went back to like find the description for you guys, because like my whole thesis of this video was going to be like false advertising and like marketing and clickbaity like words to try and get like people to buy your book. But it's so much worse that like the marketing was used and then removed. Like it's gone. Like now it's just like a college steamy romance. And it's like, well, that's not what you said it was going to be, Ali. This is not what I signed up for. This is not what I pre-ordered this book for. Like Opal said in the intro, like we printed off a kink sheet because in the book, they print off kink sheets and instead of doing them together like you should definitely be doing them together so that you can have like discussions. Like the whole time she was like, wow, this is so 50 Shades. Okay, so take a page out of Anna and Christian's book and do the kink sheet together. The kink sheet, which we don't even figure out what's on it. They don't tell us what's on it, they just tell us what's not on it. Gagging, hard limit, not on it. So I crossed that out. This checklist has 261 different kink/activities, and I highlighted everything they did. So they did spanking, only with his hand, biting, and begging. And even like the begging, I was just like, okay, it's not really what I would consider that. And it's like, if you're going to like commit to the bit, then commit to the bit. Now let's move on to the plot. Now that we've established that there was no kink involved and it was really just a bit of rough sex, let's move on to the plot, because the plot just, where was it? Where was it? Like I said, like we're leading up to the Olympics, and so we're going through like these competitions and we're kind of leading up to it, and it just, then we didn't get it. We didn't get the Olympics. We got it in the epilogue. Let me read it for you. So page 440, it's Lucas's perspective, and we're kind of getting scenes of their life together, like little snippets. And in little snippet on 440 at the bottom, it says, occasionally someone brings up his previous life. Yeah, because the epilogue is written in third person for some reason. This is from Scarlett's perspective, first person, and then the epilogue is his epilogue, but it's third person. Like, can you pick a style, please? Just in the, like, if you want to switch it up in a different book. But occasionally someone brings up his previous life. Do you really not miss swimming? Not really, no. Interesting. You know there's an orthopedics resident here who used to be an Olympian a few years ago. Like in Paris, I want to say. Melbourne, Lucas corrects in his head. Diving, I think. The one in Paris, she and her partner got a bronze medal. Silver. Do you know of her? Lucas smiles. I am familiar. Yes. That's all we get. That's the Olympics. That's the peak. It's just like, oh yeah, she went to the Olympics a couple of years ago, got a silver medal. So we don't get to see. It's like, so why am I reading this book if I don't get the closure? And then, speaking of a bucket of ice water dumped on my excitement, every time they have sex, she brings up his ex. Every single time. And the one time, and it's like, what a way to take me out of the moment. It's like hot, sexy sex. And then, oh yeah, I wonder what your ex-girlfriend thinks about this. Sorry? I wasn't thinking about her. Why are you thinking about her? And then we finally move on. And I'm like, okay, we're finally gonna get one scene. Everything's been cleared up. He's literally, in the beginning of the book, he's been dating his kind of high school sweetheart for 7 years, and it's kind of stale between them. She breaks up with him because he says, hey, I wanna spice up the bedroom and this is what I'm into, and she's not into it, so they're not sexually compatible. And then she goes off and dates someone else, and he dates Scarlett. That's the whole premise of this book. And because Scarlett finds out the reason why they broke up, and then Scarlett goes to the ex and is just like, just so you know, like, this is what I'm into as well, and if you ever had any questions about BDSM and you didn't want to ask him, you can ask me, like, and she's like, doesn't it feel like you're setting the feminist movement back 70 years? And she's just like, not really, no, I really enjoy it. And then she's just like, oh, okay, well, you have my blessing. And then she gets drunk and gets the two of them together and is like, you guys go for it, like you would be perfect together. And then at the end, she's just like, how could you do this to me? How could you do this to me, Lucas, Scarlett? You're stealing everything from me. And they're both like, well, you pushed us to this, like you encouraged it. And she was like, well, stop, I forbid it. And it's just like, oh, for fuck's sake, like, do we have to have an argument right now? Like, do we have to do this? Also, like, one of her old teammates, the ex Penelope, one of her old ex-teammates is just like, you've got to watch your back around her, she's a snake. And then we don't see any snake-like behavior because she says, oh, you know, I forbid you to get into a relationship. And then the next chapter, she's like, oh yeah, that was really unfair of me, I was hurt, I was lashing out. So then, like, why did we care about, like, the ex-classmate? None of that made sense. Like, don't throw in a plot point unless you're going to complete the cycle. Like, creative writing is not as subjective as people make it seem. I did a creative writing degree. It is measurable. There is a way to measure how good a story is based on criteria. Don't tell me and set up a scene that she's a sneaky, snaky asshole bitch and then make her okay. Make her like a decent human being. Like, commit. This whole book was like edging and then not following through. The sex scenes, I was like, okay, and now what? Are we finally gonna get like just like ropes, handcuffs, just something minor? Like, can we get even choking? Just choke her out a little bit, you know? Just like, where's we didn't go anywhere. There was no point to this book. What I love about Ali Hazelwood is that it's not just romance. She spearheaded the STEMinist literature movement with the love hypothesis. And, you know, I'm all for a cheesy romance, girl meets boy, meet cute, like they fall in love, have a third act breakup with miscommunication, and then they get back together. That's a standard formula, it works. But the reason why I love Ali Hazelwood is because in her books, there's always some like other underlying theses. For example, in The Love Hypothesis, it's all about how power dynamics in academia work, realism in the way that female scientists are treated. And that was so refreshing because it was like, okay, we're mixing that with a romance novel and I'm getting extra, it's like getting a dessert and then there's toppings on it. And that's why I love The Love Hypothesis. I was like, okay, I'm getting a standard romance, but I'm getting extra on top. Just like with Love Theoretically. Elsie is a diabetic, but because academia doesn't pay well, she can't afford health insurance. And there's like political undertones around, you know, having a disability in America and like academia and like also the power plays in the way like her boss controls the supervisors that she can reach out to. Like, I love that. Like, why give up on a formula that works? This wasn't romantic at all. I didn't even get the vanilla ice cream. I mean, I kind of got vanilla ice cream, but like, I didn't get the dessert. I didn't get the romance. In a romance novel, your job as a romance writer is to get two characters, make me the reader like them, and then root for their romance together. I do not like Lucas. I do not like him. Why? Because we find out that him and Penelope, when they're together, they realize that they're sexually incompatible. So they start to like try and explore and experiment. They get into threesomes. And he says, you know, Penelope, she picked most of the time. But when you came to the university and I like locked eyes with you, I was like, I want her. And so Penelope asks Scarlett, you know, what's your current situation? And at the time, Scarlett's like, oh, I have a boyfriend. And so Penelope's just like, oh, she has a boyfriend, she's not interested. And then he says, I thought of you anyway, Scarlett. I thought of you the whole time, well, not the whole time, since he met her, the 2 years. In the 2 years, he knew of her existence, but was still with Penelope. He was thinking of her. And I was like, oh, that's... no. If you want me to fall in love with these characters, you're doing a terrible job. And then we have to deal with Scarlett, who's been in therapy for over 10 years and still hasn't progressed, and like is still in the same like, I'm not going to open up to my psychologist, I'm not going to like put in the work, and actively cancels her sessions. And it's like, I'm noticing a lot in the books I'm reading where authors are putting their characters through therapy, and then they'll meet a love interest, and wow, through the power of sex, she's healed. Her trauma is healed. Like, this whole time, she had a bad dive. She's recovering from an injury, and now she has a like, physically she's fine, but psychologically she has a block. She can't perform the dive that she performed when she was injured, but she needs to be able to perform that dive to, you know, progress through the competitions. And she's working hard on it with her psychologist and her coach. And after one conversation with Lucas, he's fixed her. He's fixed her. And then he rewards her with sex, which is positive reinforcement for her to, you know, just do the stupid fucking dive. And he's fixed her. So, you know, who needs therapy, right? I want to read a couple more reviews that I found. Raz says, and it gets worse some fucking how. While he was in a relationship with the FMC's friend, they were together for a whole 7 years. He was thinking of the female main character and wanting his ex to ask her to join them in one of their little threesomes. Is this supposed to be romantic and hot, or do I just have standards? Again, there's nothing wrong with having a threesome. That's not the issue that people are having. It's the fact that he emotionally cheated, essentially. Why would he stay in a relationship with Penelope when he so clearly wants someone else, and he's thinking of Scarlett the last 2 years he's with Penelope? You can't make me root for a man like that. You think Adam Carlson would do that to Olive? No, he was chronically single and pined for Olive for years. Love theoretically. You think my book husband, Jack, is emotionally cheating? No. There was groveling here. There was, I only see you, you are the center of my universe. Like, you're not making me like you. Like, I'm not liking this. You're not making me fall in love with this man. This man is icking me, and he's toxic as shit. And I can do toxic. Like, a piece of my heart belongs to Jeremy Volkov. But this toxicity presents and manifests in the first time they sleep together, he ghosts her for a week. He doesn't talk to her for a week. He just ghosts. And she even makes a little joke about it when she confronts him. She's like, this is baby's first ghosting. You're giving me mixed messaging. And he was like, it was too intense for me. And I had to pull away because I pull away from things I want. just to prove that I want them, just to prove that I can't live without them. Get a hobby. And then when he goes to Europe, he goes to Estonia, I think, for his own competition, because he's a swimmer and she's a diver. He goes to Estonia for his own competition, and then they just don't talk. And I thought, okay, it's finally picking up. We've cleared up the misunderstandings. Like, we're finally going to get some action. And maybe because they're going to be apart for a little while, we'll get like some phone sex, like some sort of like, that would have been great to explore. And then we just don't. And later we find out it's because they like crossed out phone sex as one of their hard limits on their kink checklist, mind you, which is blank basically. Why didn't they include this? You know what would have been really nice? Instead of having this fan art on the back and front, or like these little inclusions, could we have a copy of their list? Because I don't think Ali actually thought about this. She was like, yeah, I want to write a BDSM novel. And the first step is to do one of these, right? Because I've watched 50 Shades of Grey. Ali, stick to your roots. I know that your roots are a fanfic writer, but your fanfics were ABO fanfics, which is why I loved Bride. Because when I read Bride, I was like, oh my God, this is what your style is. Like, this is your comfort zone. This is like the opposite of thriving. This is drowning. This was drowning. You were drowning, Ali, in this whole book. Please take a break. Please take a break. We can't have, last year we got Bride, we got Not in Love, and then we got the Spotify novella that was exclusive to Spotify, and then we got a Christmas book as well at the end of the year. That's 4 works. And like, I know you're a fanfic writer and you can like pump these things out, but you need a break, my guy. Like, this just proves to me how much you're struggling. Blink twice if you need help. Because at first I was like, maybe it's just Ali being censored by the publishing house. Maybe Ali actually wrote a decent script and they've gone, oh, we can't do this scene, we can't do this scene, we can't do this scene. Because this is a hodgepodge of a book. It doesn't make sense. Did Ali write cohesively and then the publishing house has just stripped out so many parts and glued it back together that it doesn't make sense? Or is it on Ali? I can't tell if this is Ali's issue or the publishing house's issue, but either way, it's a D tier book for me. Like I said, I did not get the dessert. I didn't get toppings, but I didn't even get the dessert because this was not a romance novel. There was nothing romantic about it. They didn't even go on dates. Like, there was no emotional connection. And then at one point she was like, this is the first time we're seeing each other in a month and we haven't spoken. And it's like, and you expect me to root for this couple? You expect me to root for these people who are so emotionally stunted they don't talk to each other? Even if they're sexually compatible, there is nothing keeping this relationship together. It's literally, she has anxious attachment, he has avoidant attachment, and they're just not compatible at all. And at the end, there's that whole conflict with Penn where, you know, Scarlett manages to do the dive that she can't be able to do, but it puts her ahead of Penelope in the ranking. So she gets the gold medal and she has Lucas, and Penelope's like, you stole my gold medal and my boyfriend. And then Scarlett runs out of the aquatic center and Lucas runs after her and he's like, what's wrong? And she's just like, I can't do this. Everything's so overwhelming. And then she uses their safe word. The safe word, by the way, is stop. I mean, a safe word can be whatever you want it to be, but also, it was so not thought through. I want to end with a review from Sophie. Sophie gave the book 1 star and she made a really good point. She wrote, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm going to read the parts that really need to be said. 1 star. I've never rated one of Miss Hazelwood's books lower than 4 stars. She's the only author I've got auto-buy on. With that being said, what on earth have I just read? This was not it. For years I've sighed at, in brackets, but ultimately understood, the criticism that Miss Hazelwood's books get. Her heroes are all indeed the same and they do all indeed look like Adam Driver. But why change a winning concept? I repeat myself, why would you ever change a winning concept? You do so when you have something even better. Now let me tell you what's not even better than the obsessed, utterly in love, soft, kind, but only ever really to her Adam Driver lookalikes. A man who spends most of his time catering to the ex-girlfriend. That's the other thing. Like, we're trying to move on from Penelope. This whole book, we're trying to move on from Penelope. They have a sex scene and then she brings up Penelope again. And then we have a sex scene in the locker room and the Penelope thing's already been resolved. And she's just like, I'm on all fours. I look up from the bench and I see Penelope's name on her locker. And I was like, leave Penelope out of this. Penelope I don't want to hear that bitch's name right now. Penelope, by the way, is like off with her teacher. She's having a whole thing with her teacher. And then at the end, the reason why she's so upset is because teacher broke up with her because she was like not mature enough, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, back to Sophie's review. She says, can professional authors stop trusting Google Translate? Some of the translations killed me. Like, what the fuck do you mean? Insert Swedish word, because I'm not going to embarrass myself on the internet. And this is, insert Swedish word. That is not how anyone would say it. How hard is it to let a Swede proofread it? It's 1, not even correct grammar-wise, and 2, no Swedish person would ever speak like that. I'm actually baffled at the complete lack of research done on this aspect. Why would you ever make a character foreign if you have zero interest in actually researching their country? It's so sloppy and so ignorant. You're telling me a best-selling author with one of the biggest publishing houses behind them couldn't muster up the energy to A, research the country you spend half the book writing about, or B, at least get a native Swede in the to proofread the bullshit you just made up. Preach. Sophie, how do you feel about writers writing about countries they don't know about? That's how I feel about writers who write about mental illness and neurodevelopmental disorders like ADHD and autism, and they have no idea what they're talking about. And it's just spreading stereotypical misinformation. And it's like, what research was done here? Not just about Sweden, but about like this whole thing as well. I'm so actually annoyed that they've changed the I'm so annoyed that they've changed the advertising as well, because it's so cheeky. Because I got my book a couple of days ago, so people have started getting their books and they've started finishing it, and now there's more and more reviews pouring in now that they've got this the book, and they've changed it to steamy cottage romance. Jump into the deep end of this forbidden romance. And it's like, is it really forbidden though? Because in the first fifth of the book, Penelope literally says, I'm totally fine with it. We've broken up. I broke up with him. I'm dating someone else. Like, I just want to be single. He's my high school sweetheart. And I don't want to feel like I'm missing out on my college experience. I'm going to go experiment. And I know that he's into BDSM. I know that you're into BDSM. Put you together. At what point do we say, okay, this isn't a forbidden romance? At what point do we say this isn't a BDSM romance? At what point do we say this isn't a romance at all? The mark of a good romance novel is, could this be turned into a cheesy Hallmark movie? Like, I love a good cheesy Hallmark movie. Like, I love my Valentine's Day blockbusters. How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, Love Hard, which is my favorite Christmas movie. Like, I love a cheesy Hallmark romance. Love Hypothesis could be that. Love Theoretically could be that. Even Love on the Brain, which I didn't love as much, but it could be a great movie. Deep End, people would walk out of the cinema. That's it for this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. I have Hunger Games videos on the way. I have Fourth Wing, Iron Flame, and Onyx Storm on the way as well. Terms and Conditions. I just finished the Dreamland Billionaires trilogy, and also I've been working my way through the Legacy of Gods. It's literally cured all of my ailments that was started through lights out with dark romance. I was just like, finally, someone understands how to do it properly. Someone who knows the difference between disassociate and dissociate and can use them correctly in a sentence. Thank you, Rena Kent.